Okay, everyone, we are going to get started. I see a lot of familiar names on the attendee list, which is great. So good to see you, Christine and Carlos and Donna and Kevin Snyder. It's good to see that you joined, Tim Robb. So a lot of nice names and faces here that I certainly have built some nice relationships with over time. So what we're going to do before I get started, if you take a look at your screen right now in the upper right-hand corner, you could expand the presentation if you would like to. So that's all up to you, but just know that you could be clicking on that X button up top above the first slide that you see for page 1, and that'll just expand this a little bit more for you. I'm also going to make sure that at the end of this webinar, we're going to put a chat function up so that if you do have questions, I can certainly be answering those questions. I just thought probably the best way to go about this was just to wait till the end. And I have a lot of hopefully good practical content to get through, and just want to make sure we do. And from there we can, any questions that you have, more than willing to certainly have a dialogue. Okay, that being said, let me get started and jump in. This is going to be most likely about an hour and 10 minutes. I'm going to try and aim for the hour. I'm always, if you know me well enough, I'm always obsessed with making sure I'm providing really practical takeaways for you. So my goal here is, by the end of this webinar, you'll be writing down some notes to have, hopefully more than a few practical takeaways for yourself for 2018. And for those of you who want this presentation, you can just reach out to me, and of course I'll email this presentation for you as well. Okay, with that being said, let's jump in. So first, I just want to get started with just talking to the fact that we are going to look at, let me just get my slide here. Here we go. I first just want to just set the groundwork for sort of macro level of what's going on in marketing. I know everyone basically knows this, but it's a nice intro to the practical roadmap for 2018 that I'm going to be talking about. Statistics are certainly showing digital is, of course, where you want to be living. Whether you're a manufacturer or you're not a manufacturer, these stats are pretty mind-blowing to see really where the trend is in marketing. So it's away from traditional print, television, and radio, especially in the B2B space, and certainly going fully online. And with this slide, you can see this is specific just to you, to the group here that we're speaking with, that manufacturers are also, of course, following this trend. Now, from my purview over the years that I've done this, working with manufacturers, smaller manufacturers, again, you don't have, of course, as large of a budget as Fortune 1000 type manufacturers, so smaller manufacturers are a little bit slower on sort of getting on this train here. But as you can see from this slide, marketers at large manufacturers are certainly spending more and more of their dollars digitally. And just so I can explain this slide, as you can see here, the dark red is an increase of more than 10% that they see for the upcoming year, for 2018, on their marketing efforts. So what are they going to be spending more on, and what are they going to be spending less on? So the lighter the red is where they're barely going to be increasing 0 to 5%. And once you get to the gray area, on the left-hand part of this slide, they're actually decreasing their spend. So as you can see, print, television, trade promotions, they're all down considerably for what marketers for manufacturers will be spending next year. Whereas the top of our list, where you see the deepest red, we're looking at mobile marketing, social media, and internet ads, and shopper marketing as well. So certainly want to be playing on trends, and for most of our clients, that's really where we are. That's where we're seeing most of the return for 2017. So with that backdrop, I just want to make sure now that what I'm going to be providing you with is this roadmap that we're looking at for some of our clients for this upcoming year. And I think the framework that's best to be talking to this playbook, digital playbook, is the typical marketing funnel. And so as you can see here, there's a top of funnel where it says attract, then there's a mid funnel, which we have as nurture, and then there's a bottom of funnel, which is convert. And you should really be thinking about your marketing efforts in this way, where everything we're really doing right now for our clients is all about the different stages of this marketing funnel. So on the top side of this, the top of the funnel, you should be thinking all about what tactics should be you be using to be attracting and to be prospecting new business. And then once someone's raised their hand and has either bumped into your website or filled out a form or signed up to your email list from the top of that funnel, then we're then going to be talking about how best to nurture that lead. And then lastly, we're going to be talking about conversion. What do you need to do to make sure that the prospect that you formed some type of relationship with is now actually converting into a new piece of business. And just to be clear, you see here with the red dotted lines, I've circled this top of the funnel that we'll first talk about. And I have SEO, LinkedIn marketing, and account-based marketing to talk to here. I mean, there are countless tactics that we could be talking about with this top of funnel. But just know that in the interest of time, of course, I just wanted to try and provide you with the three most practical tactics and sub-tactics that I think can really drive some revenue here for you for 2018. Okay, and same thing for nurture. We're going to be talking about website, drip email campaigns, and remarketing. And then lastly, for conversion, we'll be talking about technology. We'll be talking about marketing automation. So I'm always going to be going back to this funnel, and I just want to be clear that there's many more tactics that we could be focusing on, but for the sake of today, it's these that we think you can get the most bang for your buck out of. Okay, so we'll first start with the top of the funnel for prospecting and lead gen, and we're going to start with search engine optimization. I'm sure most of you know about search engine optimization. It's been around of course, for a long time, but the goal here is to provide you with, again, some practical nuggets that you probably haven't heard about that you should know about to be driving revenue through SEO. Okay, but SEO ultimately is, right, for those of you who don't know, it's the process of maximizing the number of visitors to your website by ensuring that the site appears high on the list of results returned by Google. It could be also by Bing, but about 80% of the traffic today is coming from Google. So a little bit more primer on SEO before we get to some practical nuggets is, as you see from my screen, the top part of this Google page where you see the yellow add buttons, that's paid search. We're not going to go over that today. But right under that is organic search, which means you're able to be found on the first page of Google without you paying for that privilege. Okay, and there's countless ways to be making sure that you're showing up in those top rankings organically. We're going to just be sharing just a few of those with you that we think have most impact for your business. Okay, so we're talking about organic search, not paid search at this point. One nugget, so nugget number one that's a takeaway for you is if you don't know about SEMrush, you should. You can go to semrush.com, and that's a wonderful website where you can really dig into your website traffic and where your organic website traffic is coming from. Right, so I just use me as the guinea pig with TribalVision, and you'll see, the top keywords, right, that are driving website traffic for myself. So for me, it's TribalVision, my name, which makes sense. It's outsourced marketing companies, and outsourced marketing. Those are the top four at this point. And just know that, it makes sense because I've done a lot over these 8 years of being in business to make sure that we're ranking very high. We want to really own that keyword, so that's good for me to see. But also, again, it'll show you, if you look at the bottom right-hand part of your slide, you'll see that we have 464 total backlinks, meaning links from other websites linking to our content. And this is just an example, of course. There's much more that you can learn from SEMrush after you enter in your web address, okay? But for your SEO efforts, it should start by really understanding the foundation of your website. Okay, and you can also, another cool aspect of this is you can know where you stand in comparison to your competitors, right, to figure out what your keyword selection, right, what you want to be ranking for is, right? So just know that you can be plugging in your website, and it'll then be providing you with who Google shows as your top competitors and what keywords they then are ranking for. And then you have a decision to make. Do you want to go after those keywords? If you don't think that they're too competitive, where you're not going up against a huge manufacturer who has a big budget, you most likely if you put in just a little bit of time with SEO, can probably equal or surpass them, in my opinion, organically, because from my experience, most, not all, but most manufacturers are not spending the time and money and resource on their SEO efforts. So they probably have gotten to the first page without much time, money, or effort. Okay, so a lot you can be doing here with SEMrush. That's where I would start with coming up with a strategy around ranking highly on Google. Once you've done that, you now want to cover your bases and make sure that what's called on-site optimization, it means on your website, what you can be doing then once you've selected those keywords, what you can be doing to optimize them on your website for Google search engine spiders to find. Okay, so I've just broken this slide down into the basics, right? So it's your URL. Of course, you want to make sure that your URL, this is the most basic of pieces of advice, but you know, certainly ranked more highly for .com versus other extensions. More importantly, for the keywords, right, they should be used in the title tag and meta description of your website, okay? And they also should be used and interspersed in what's called your H1 to H4 tags. So just know that Google, when they go to your website, they go to your home page or they go to any subpage, the first thing Google searches is that title tag, and that title tag can be found right above your browser in terms of how your page is being explained to Google. So I would say, again, in my 8 years working with manufacturers, I'd say 7 out of 10 times, if you were to take a look at your title tag of your home page, it says home page, and that does nothing for you organically. So you've got to make sure that it's the keywords that you want to be ranking for. That should be in that title tag of your home page. That by far carries the most weight. And from there, you want to make sure then you do the same. All of the subpages of your website, you want to come up with a little bit of a different variation on those title tags. Okay, so you're limited to 70 characters in length, but there's enough there for you to really do some damage. And again, in a not so competitive organic market, which most manufacturers play in, meaning you don't have that tough a competition, oftentimes you just get the title tags right, and if you get those H1 to H4 tags right on your website, you're probably going to have a good chance of ranking decently highly pretty quickly. Okay. Lastly, you can also make sure that your meta keyword tags on your website, those have to be optimized for the right keywords, and your meta description. Now, your meta description is if you were to go onto Google and Google something, you know, right underneath the URL that comes up, there's going to be a description. That's a meta description, and that's certainly carrying weight as well with Google as to just how well written your meta descriptions are, and if they are containing relevant keywords that you want to be driving traffic to. Okay, so that's called on-page optimization. You might then say, well, that sounds great, Chris, but you're in the clouds right now because I have no idea really how I'm supposed to do this. Don't you know I'm a manufacturer and I don't have a robust marketing department who's up on this? Well, just know, again, here's maybe another practical nugget for you, which is a tool called Yoast. You can just go to, I believe it's either yoast.com or yoast.org, I forget. But you just Google Yoast, and you'll find that it's a free plugin to your website that can optimize just what I've talked about, where I have a screenshot here where you can, by page, for each of the pages on your website, as long as you have this plugin installed, you can then upload everything we talked about between title tags, meta descriptions, meta tags. It can all be done using this tool. Okay, so hopefully another practical SEO nugget for you. In addition, this oftentimes gets overlooked by companies that I work with, is even just the images that are on your website. Okay, you want to make sure you're adding what's called alt text to these images, so that when Google Spider is on your website, you know, if that image doesn't have alt text underneath it that's describing that picture, and you can describe it with, again, the keywords that you really want to be ranked for, as long as it's not too far of a reach, you want to make sure that you're adding alt text to all of these images on your website. For some manufacturers, that alone has provided a very big bounce in Google rankings just doing that. In addition, Google loves the fact that you have links even within your website, so where there's opportunity for you to be linking to other pages of your own website. As you can see, I provided an example here that I've put in that red box. Those links are actually great for what we call getting Google juice, which is ultimately, just becoming in favor with Google. Okay, and they also want to make sure that there's outbound links. So if you have a blog, for example, instead of just writing a blog that has no links, you should be thinking about both these inbound links that I just mentioned and also outbound links to other websites or publications that you're referring to in the blog. Okay, so again, everyone loves to talk about making sure you get backlinks. If you remember, I mentioned that a couple slides ago. I showed you TribalVision had something like 463. That's, of course, extremely important, but these are low-hanging pieces of fruit here that you could be doing on your website without having many backlinks. Another, hopefully, practical nugget for you is there's many tools that are out there that can actually assess just how well your on-page optimization is of your website. So there's one that I'm providing you here. If you just go to neilpatel.com, Neil Patel, he's actually a marketing thought leader that we follow here at TribalVision. He's come up with his own tool for this. He's fantastic. And it will then be able to not only rank what your SEO score is on each of your pages, but it will also provide you with recommendations on how to strengthen your search on those pages. It's very practical. So if you want to remember neilpatel.com, you can find it on his website. Okay, also you want to make sure that low-hanging fruit, your business is present on Google My Business and other business directories. Again, oftentimes we work with manufacturers where it's just not built out, and it's not rocket science, but it just takes some time to make sure that you're building out that presence. So you can see on the left-hand side, I just took a screenshot of TribalVision so you can see what that looks like. We've uploaded pictures. We have reviews on Google. We have basic information there that oftentimes manufacturers are missing out on. And same thing with directories, whether it's Yelp or whether it's ThomasNet or other directories. You want to make sure that you're present on these directories. Reviews, this is becoming more and more important. Even just this past year, what we've read here at TribalVision and the experts that we speak with at Google, they're saying that reviews are key. And so again, just using me as the guinea pig here, we make sure that however many reviews that we can be requesting from our clients, as long as, of course, we're doing a good job for them, we have a process that we've put in place to make sure that at the end of an engagement, for example, we're asking how did we do, and if we did well enough, we'd love to receive a review on Google. And again, your next point might be, well, they might not even know how to do that. We even get to the point where we're providing that link to Google, so all that our clients or former client has to do is just click on the link and just write the review and submit. So again, it's about process, but reviews are becoming more and more important. I'm just using an example here. Just one 5-star review jumped us in one keyword category 3 spots, and that was just over a 2-month period of time. And we're in a very competitive industry for SEO, unlike manufacturers. So just one 5-star review ended up jumping us 3 positions. Okay, so that's search engine optimization on the top of the funnel. Again, I'm sure I've heard all about it, but hopefully these are some practical tips for you to make sure that your SEO game for 2018 is on the right path. Second, now I want to talk about account-based marketing. And some of you, and I'm going to guess many more of you, will have not heard about account-based marketing as you have about search engine optimization. So I'm sort of excited about this. This has really picked up steam over the past year. Just in at least marketing jargon, ABM for account-based marketing is sort of the rage, especially in the B2B space. And most of you, I'm assuming, are fitting right into that business-to-business marketing space where you're not just marketing to a consumer. So I just thought this would be a good opportunity to talk about ABM and to then talk about really how you could be using this in your own businesses. Okay, so there's 5 steps to account basing. Okay, and what is account-based marketing? So I guess let me just first start there. So ABM is a strategy in which sales and marketing teams work together to target best fit accounts and turn them into customers. Right? This 5-step approach allows the sales team to identify accounts' highest revenue potential for your business and enables your marketing team to develop a tailored campaign to contacts at these accounts. So big picture, what you should know about account-based marketing is instead of just taking a high-level mass marketing approach that really doesn't work anymore and you're just tuned out, instead it has become much more refined with a lot of tools that are at your disposal. And we're going to go over those tools in just a few slides. But the point here is big picture, especially with manufacturers, where many manufacturers tell me, Chris, this is great. I love marketing, but it's just not going to work for me because I'm in too specialized a niche. And I don't know how marketing is going to get to that niche. And I can tell you that with account-based marketing, you now can get to that niche. And what it is it's sort of common sense in a lot of ways, where you can then be first, and I guess I'll go over this 5-step approach now for what you do with account-based marketing. First step is you want to be targeting with your sales team. Target those accounts, new accounts. You could do it for existing, by the way, too, to get more out of existing accounts if you're working with large companies in different divisions. But let's just keep it simple and say that for prospective accounts, why don't we come up with a hit list of, let's just say, 250 accounts that we would love to be doing business with in the upcoming year. Okay, so you're now going to be gathering those 250 names, and then you're going to then from there start figuring out, of course, is it the size of company that matters? Is it the vertical they're in that matters? There's a lot of different ways that you can be segmenting this list, but ultimately it's gather a list, and from there then with tools that are out there, which we'll talk about, you now want to start targeting the decision makers, influencers in that list, right? So again, it'll be very simple. I'll just use me as the guinea pig. I'm using account-based marketing, by the way, and I'm using it, it's been successful for TribalVision, where we're coming up with those lists. I'm targeting, depends on the size of company. For a large manufacturer, that's $100 million manufacturer, I'm not targeting the CEO. I'm targeting the head of sales or the head of marketing. And in addition to that, I'm then finding the influencers around that head of marketing or sales that I'm also going to be reaching out to. For a smaller company, a smaller manufacturer, I'm going right to the CEO. I'm going right to the C-suite and making sure that I'm finding their titles and finding who they are online so that I can start building out my list. So the question then becomes, how do you do that? And before I get to that, I'll just say that step 3 is creating content, right? So you want to make sure that once you have your list developed, okay, and you've then identified through LinkedIn, usually, or through their own website, identified who those decision makers and influencers are, you then have to make sure that you're creating content that's very personalized to those individuals of the company. So I will say that given this isn't mass marketing as I'm talking about, it's much more personalized and intimate, there is a lot of time that has to be put into making sure that you have very personalized content to these individuals. So the second they see this is from like Constant Contact or MailChimp, you're going to have a much, much lower response rate versus it's well thought out in terms of talking to their need or talking to their company, and it looks like it's coming directly from you versus a Constant Contact template. Okay, and so it starts with content. So you've got to make sure that you have content that's going to be relevant to them and engages them, okay? Because we've worked with some companies where they say, no, we've tried this, and you know what? It sounds good, but it doesn't work. We've gotten nothing from it. And then once we start to get under the hood and dig in and realize their content is just so poor, it's just very banal and generic. There's no links to assets that's been built. There's no white papers. There's no case studies. There's no success stories. There's no video testimonials interspersed with the outreach. Of course, it's going to have a very low response rate. So, don't want to be a party pooper here, right? But you got to make sure that you're investing in content. It doesn't have to be a ton, but it has to be enough content so that they are paying attention to you. And you should be segmenting that content whether it's top of funnel, as I talked about, right, middle of funnel where they've already heard about you but they still haven't converted, or bottom of funnel to make sure that they really are converting. Okay, so just make sure that we're talking about creating content here. Okay, fourth is, of course, you launch the campaigns, whether that's through Google or LinkedIn or even direct mail, LinkedIn sponsored ads. You know, the list can be on and on. And I want to stay high level here for a moment. Just know the point here is once you've identified your list, you've identified the contacts in your list, you've created the content. From there, then, of course, you're launching through various tactics. We'll get into that in a bit more. And from there, of course, you've got to report on this. So, you know, we have one manufacturer in particular that's fantastic to work with, where they have an internal point person who's heading their marketing efforts as well. And they're able to really now start doing like A/B testing on different pieces of content, what the subject line should be, who this should be coming from, what the frequency of this outreach to this 250 hit list, what that frequency should look like, etc. It starts with reporting. Okay, so if you're just blasting it out there and not then analyzing response rates, click-through rates, and engagement, then it's not going to perform nearly as well. Okay, so this gets to, again, some payoffs here for you in terms of, you could say, Chris, this sounds great, but again, I don't know how to really do this. You're still sort of in the clouds for me here. Here are some cool tools that will allow you to be as refined and targeted as we're talking about. So LeadIQ is a tool that you can find online, and it's a contact research tool that operates out of LinkedIn. Okay, so you can go onto LinkedIn, you can search a contact record in LinkedIn and retrieve their email address, okay, regardless of their connection status with you on LinkedIn. Okay, and the pricing is inexpensive. It starts at $40 a month for LeadIQ. But my point is, you're saying, Chris, how am I going to be building this list even? Because I'm going to need email addresses. You can then be using LeadIQ, where it's like a Chrome extension, similar to Hunter, which is right under it, where you can literally just right-click on someone's LinkedIn profile page. And it's not going to be 100% of the time, I want to be clear, but 60, 70% of the time you're going to be able to find their email address as well for your outreach and for the list building. Hunter is another. It's a Google Chrome extension where it's used to locate email addresses on a company domain. So I used it on TribalVision just as an example, where I downloaded the extension. From there, I right-clicked on the TribalVision.com website, and guess what? I found my email address, and it was correct, and I found 20 other TribalVision employees' email addresses that are correct also. It's not foolproof. I didn't find all 60 of our employees, but guess what? Once you know what that extension is of someone's email, so for me it's first initial, last name at TribalVision, as long as you know the contact's name, you're going to be able to find their email address. Okay, so those are two really practical tools when you're talking about building your lists. In terms of deploying the list, there's PersistIQ, and there's also, and there's many, by the way, I'm just giving you a couple nuggets, but there's PersistIQ, and there's also ActiveCampaign. ActiveCampaign is really a more robust platform than PersistIQ, where if you're a bit more ambitious and you want to use this tool also to serve as your marketing automation, not just for outreach, but even to your own, and also to have its own, what's called CRM that most of you are familiar with, customer relationship management. It integrates both all in one. Okay, so it's pretty robust. It's only like a couple $100 a license, meaning a use month, and it's perfect typically for a small to mid-sized manufacturer. If you're just looking to do the account-based marketing outreach that I'm talking about and not worrying about your own internal email list to integrate, then PersistIQ is great. We use it actually for many of our clients and for ourselves. It's about $8 a month. It starts even a little bit lower than that. It's based on how many emails that you send out, but ultimately it's a platform that allows you to automate emails. So if we're talking about that list of 250 names, for example, okay, that you find, and you now want to start doing, and we're going to go over this in a bit, but drip email marketing campaigns to that list of 250. So you have 250 companies, 2 names per company, right? That's 500 names, and you want to make sure that you're reaching out to them more than once, right? Because there's frequency involved. So you want to set up a 5 touch point campaign over a 3 or 4 week period. PersistIQ will enable you to do that, where you're setting it all up front, and then you're just hitting the green go button, and it automates this process for you. And the other benefit of a PersistIQ is that unlike, like I said earlier, unlike Constant Contact and MailChimp and iContact, others where it's a template, where you know that you're just another number out of 10,000 others this message was sent to, PersistIQ enables you to have it come across like it's coming directly from you. So it's not an email template at all. And that has dramatically increased response rates for our clients using that much more personalized platform versus the templatized approach that everyone is so tired of seeing. Okay, and lastly, of course, Google Analytics. If you're not using Google Analytics right now, you certainly should be. You just need to be inserting a piece of code on every page of your website. But you need to be tracking all of this, of course, in terms of what it's driving for unique visitors to your website on a daily, monthly, annual basis. So sort of goes without saying, but I know everyone's really busy, so oftentimes it's, yeah, I know we should be doing it, but we don't have the time for it. So you got to make sure for these types of campaigns you have the time for it. Okay, so hopefully that's really practical. I wanted to also hit on what's called calling 2.0, which is similar to account-based marketing, ABM, but it's just think of it as just from a sales prospecting perspective, right? We're not going to be using it as much other than for email, outbound email that would be going out. Okay, so if you say, Chris, I know you showed me, show you this slide, and this slide seems intimidating to me to have to figure out all of the channels to deploy to that list, and I don't have the resource or expertise to do that. I just want to get some leads coming in the door in as simplistic a way as possible. Then you can then take more of a cold call 2.0 approach. It has nothing to do with cold calling or telemarketing. That word was actually coined not by me, but by a gentleman named Aaron Ross, who was the former head of sales at Salesforce.com, which is now a billion-dollar company, more than a billion-dollar company, publicly traded. Just know that he built Salesforce into the machine that he is using this cold call 2.0 technique, which again is account-based marketing, but it's just using email. So same thing, if you look at this slide, right, you're defining your target profile, you're adding target accounts, adding contacts of influencers within those companies you want to target, right, and then from there you are sending emails over an extended period of time. And from there, once that email becomes an opportunity, meaning someone raises their hand and says, you know what, yeah, I do want to hear more about your product. From there, that's handed directly over to your Salesforce at that point, right? And that's the nice sort of symbiotic relationship marketing and sales now can have, is that we really can be taking the place, and this is what this book is about, predictable revenue. I mean, in this book, Aaron Ross talks about, why are you spending so much money hiring some high-powered salesperson where at first all they're going to be doing, if they're trying to find new business, is doing just what we're talking about, but they're probably not going to do it nearly as efficiently in nearly of a scalable way. If they're just banging the phones and trying to go after business on their Rolodex, this is a far more cost-effective and efficient way to be doing the prospecting. And then you bring in that high-powered salesperson costing you a lot of money. Once those leads happen, one raises their hand and says, you know what, I do want to learn more. Okay, now we can hand this off to that individual and they can do their job. Okay, so marketing, you can think of cold calling 2.0 as we're on the really top end of the funnel, and our job is to transition anyone who's interested off to a salesperson. Okay, so hopefully you understand the difference a bit between ABM and cold calling 2.0, but that's become a bit of a rage here over the last year. Okay, LinkedIn marketing. I know everyone knows about LinkedIn, so I'm not going to bore you with slides that you already know about. So hopefully I'm going to, again, just give you a couple nuggets that you can put in your own toolkit here. So this is a bit of a no-brainer, but I just couldn't control myself. I just had to say it anyways. You got to make sure that you're building out your business page on LinkedIn. A lot of manufacturers neglect that or think that they have a built-out profile, but ultimately it's a fifth of where it should be, right? There's no video on the site. The content on the site is dated. You're not posting any jobs through your site. You have 42 total followers on your site when you really should have over 1,000. There's a lot that you can be doing on that LinkedIn page, and especially for manufacturers, just know that if you're talking about selling a product that might be in the 6 figures or even the high 2 figures, someone who's a buyer that you're selling into, they're certainly going to be going to your LinkedIn page. So please make sure that your company profile page is as strong as it can be, and make sure your team in your C-suite, or if you're in the C-suite, your profiles are as built out as possible as well. And there's just a lot of manufacturers we've worked with where, they're $100 million manufacturers and they've overlooked this basic point. In addition, you should really be thinking about setting yourselves up with premium accounts, or at least the marketing person with the premium account, because what premium accounts can do is they can allow you to send in-mails, right? And in-mail, hopefully most of you know, is just like an email, but it's sent through LinkedIn. And, we're all executives here, where how many in-mails are you receiving on a monthly basis? Forget about even daily, monthly. For me, maybe it's 5, 10. And so the response rate for an in-mail is far, far stronger than the response rate of an email where you have 250 emails a day coming in. So you should be thinking about setting yourselves up, or someone at your company, with an in-mail account that's premium. And there's 3 different packages that I have here that Premium Business, Sales Navigator Pro, and Recruiter Lite. Okay, and from there you can then, back to that targeted list, you can start targeting those that you want to be going after with very customized in-mails. Okay. This is also, just know, if you don't know this, that LinkedIn has a powerful search tool, right, to be able to find, if you're talking about, Chris, I don't even know how to build out that list of 250 or 500, or let's say even 1,000. I'm thinking of a handful of companies to go after. Well, using this targeted, filter set through LinkedIn, they'll be able to provide you with, a large population of possible companies that you might not have even known about, based on SIC code, based on employee size, based on revenue, based on, a ton of filter sets, based on title, who you want to go after within a company. I just want to go after VPs of sales and VPs of marketing. It'll provide that list to you. So a lot of companies just aren't aware of that. Okay, and from there then you can say, great, Chris, now I know how I can start going after a lot of companies on LinkedIn, and I know that I can use InMail. You've talked to me about cold calling 2.0. How else can I be getting in front of those needles in the haystack? Another way that you could do this, just know, is to come up with what's called sponsored posts, right? And a sponsored post on LinkedIn, I'm using me as the example again, right? This here on the left-hand side of the slide, what good dating and marketing have in common. That's a graphic I developed where it is a sponsored post, which means in addition to the circle of followers that I have, which is free, everyone's going to see it if I'm posting a piece of content, those outside of my circle, okay, where I use that LinkedIn targeted filter set, I now can get my content right in front of them and only them, okay? And so that's powerful, right? If I know that there are, for me, 1,000 manufacturing CEOs, right, within a 500-mile radius, not all of them will be on LinkedIn, but many of them will be at LinkedIn. I want my content in front of them every time. Okay, so through sponsored posts, you're paying for that, right? So if they click on you, on that graphic of mine right there, right? If they click on that, you have to pay for it, but you're only paying for it if they click on the graphic, right? So in my opinion, it's a bit of a no-brainer. Worst case scenario, you're gathering email addresses, right? So let's just say they on you and nothing happens, right? You don't do business together. Well, you have, at least you're able to capture their email address, because if you notice the right-hand side of this slide, in order for them to get that piece of content that I've written that hopefully is valuable to them, they have to fill out their information. Okay, so if nothing else, you can start building your email list using LinkedIn sponsored posts. Okay, and I thought I had one other slide here, but let me just mention it to you. There's one other cool tidbit here about LinkedIn that's happening now that a lot of companies are using, which is you can also be uploading, whether it's your customer list or a lookalike list where you can literally say, okay, LinkedIn, here are all of my clients that I'm working with. I want to find more of them. Well, they can then be able to provide you, and again, the technology is only getting better, they'll be able to provide you with what's called a lookalike, where in addition to those that you targeted through their targeted filter set, they'll give you recommendations as to who you're targeting on LinkedIn by the uploading of your own email addresses of your companies, okay, which is pretty cool. Okay, so those are other ways that you can be leveraging LinkedIn that you might not know about. You might have just known it was, you can do groups, and oftentimes groups really don't do much because no one really, that sounds good, but no one follows through with groups, right? Like there's hopefully a few nuggets here that have been helpful for you. Okay, next now we're going to go to the mid-funnel here, right? So we talked about, ways that we can be, really driving traffic to your company and lead gen. Now, what about when they're already there? What can you be doing to make sure that you're strengthening that relationship? Because, let's just be honest with ourselves. Very seldom does it happen where someone is driven to your website, or they click on that sponsored post and you miraculously do business with them within a week. And, oftentimes, especially with B2B manufacturers, it's a long selling cycle. So we want to make sure that we have the marketing channels in place or platforms in place to make sure that you're staying in front of them. Okay, so that's what nurture is. So just remember, 3 stages of the funnel you should be thinking about: attract, nurture, convert. And again, under nurture, there can be many more than the 2 I'm talking about, but again, for the sake of time, I'm focusing on, I think, the 2 most impactful and lowest hanging fruit. Okay, so first, let's talk about remarketing. And so I'm clear, everyone understands remarketing. It's ultimately where someone comes to your website, okay, and then leaves your website, but then you're able to then follow them online, right, with whether it be the product that they clicked on your website or just overall just your own brand. They're on CNN.com, they're on the New York Times, they're on the Wall Street Journal, they're on the Boston Globe, Providence Journal. Through Google's display network, you'll be able to then, with your graphics and your content, be able to show up. And now you've got to be careful, in my opinion, right? You don't want to be annoying where you're showing up all the time. Okay, I'm sure it's happened to you. But you can pulse this. Just know that you can be pulsing this where you can be setting the frequent when you show up. But if you look at Marketing 101 in terms of ROI, return on investment, remarketing is very, very little spend for you to make sure that you're staying in front of someone that has shown some type of interest by going on your site. Okay, so it's a bit of a no-brainer. And how you do it, by the way, is you would then just go, there's a couple ways to do it, but very simply, you can just go right into Google Console where you're setting up your paid search accounts. If you've done paid search, you can just check a box, basically, and all of a sudden now you have remarketing campaigns that are on, okay? And the amount you have to pay for them to be clicking on your graphic is typically far lower than if in paid search where you're having to pay for that click. Okay, so an example, if it cost me $5 a click for TribalVision for someone to click on me on paid search, it might be 50 cents, okay, for someone to click on me in my remarketing campaign. Okay, here's an example, again, just so you have an idea. So this is me, my not so handsome face there, where we've come up with, again, a graphic, and we have a couple different examples of graphics where, someone's been to my site. Maybe they haven't heard about the testimonials of happy clients. I want them to be able to click on that and maybe reignite their interest, okay? If you want to get even more sophisticated, which we won't get into today, there's now retargeting that can happen where if they click on a product on your website, okay, and you can see that they've shown interest in that product, you can make sure that that product is reappearing to them. Okay, so it can not just get down to the website level, it can get down to the product level at this point. You want to make sure also that you are changing out your graphics and your content, right? You want to make sure that you're staying fresh, of course, right? You don't want to think about like a television commercial. Imagine running the same TV ad for an entire year. People are going to get sick of it and actually be annoyed by it after a while. So you've got to make sure that you're changing out your content and your graphics. Okay? And this is interesting too, where now with remarketing, similar to what I said about LinkedIn, where you can now start focusing in on lookalike lists. Same thing with retargeting. So the cool thing is, in addition to someone just coming to your website and leaving that you can remarket to, you now can make sure that you're remarketing to your email list, and you can also be remarketing to lookalike lists that we talked about on LinkedIn. So there's a lot becoming more and more sophisticated with what you can be doing with remarketing today. Okay. Lastly, I'll just say it should be done across all channels. So what do I mean by that? Someone comes to our website, let's just say, and they leave. Well, okay, that's fine. We already been able to target them on Google Display Network, on CNN and the Boston Globe and the Providence Journal. But what about when they're on LinkedIn? I want to appear again when they're on LinkedIn. And if you take a look at TribalVision, the graphic that's right in front of you here with the video, that's a piece of content. That's a remarketing piece of content on LinkedIn. So when someone leaves my website, they're now on LinkedIn. Oh, wow, look at this. Here's a TribalVision video testimonial reel. Okay, or if they're on YouTube, if you take a look at your upper left-hand corner of the slide, we also are on YouTube. So if you're on YouTube, we're going to be showing up on YouTube. Okay, and the same thing again on other platforms as well. Okay, so make sure you take a cross-platform approach if you can, right? I know you probably say, Chris, I don't have the time for all this. But again, the purpose of this is to just give you what's in my head right now a little bit, and you can take what you want to hopefully be able to apply to your own company. Okay? So we're still in nurture again. I just went over remarketing. Last point here, or last piece of the nurture puzzle I'll talk about are making sure you're setting up drip email marketing campaigns, okay, and marketing automation. Okay, so this is, again, in the nurture stage of what we're talking to. So you have a lead that comes in. That's in the top of your funnel now. Okay, we have remarketing now that's taking place, which is great. So you're hitting that lead in a lot of different places, which is great. If nothing else, it makes you look really credible. Okay, I can't tell you the number of times, to be honest, that I have business owners who, when I then speak with them months later, they say, you know what, I'm impressed with just how tight you are with marketing TribalVision because you're everywhere. You know, and again, we've got to be careful not to be too aggressive, but of course I like to hear that. Who wouldn't as a marketer? Okay, so second though, in addition to all of that, we've got to make sure that we have automated drip email marketing campaigns that can be happening, right? So you've got to make sure on your website, for example, that when they are on your website, you need to try and make sure you have a form at least that's built out so that you can capture their basic contact information. Okay, and you might say, they're never allowed to form. There are ways to make sure that we can increase, or you can increase that response rate into that form. Okay, because once they do that and give you permission to provide them with their email address, they provide you with their email address, now we can start doing a very basic automated, okay, drip email marketing campaign, right? So again, if someone is on your website, they click on a CNC machine product. Now all of a sudden it's okay. They could be getting a thank you email once they've signed up, a thank you for taking a look at our website. And then the second email after that, a week later, is a piece of content about your latest and greatest CNC machines. Okay, and then maybe the next month there's a case study that then goes out to that individual. So again, you might say, Chris, it's too much here, but in a perfect world, if you want to build this marketing engine next year, you've got to be thinking about, okay, it's not just prospecting and leads into the top of the funnel. It's what can I be doing to make sure I maintain top of mind awareness with those leads so that when their timing is right, they think of us because no one else is doing what we're doing with marketing engine. Okay. Secondly, just make sure, the last slide I had really on, or second to last slide on email nurturing, but just make sure that you put together a proactive content calendar. Right, so here's just a quick example, just as a nice sort of candy visual here. But ultimately, you should be every month putting together, even if it's just you're planning 1 or 2 emails a month, okay, you can at least proactively be timing what those emails, what they have to do with, right? So one could be the thank you email. The second could be, if it's a certain time of year around the holidays, there's an email that's timed to the holidays. If you remember, for me, it was, if you saw that graphic on LinkedIn, the 2 people kissing, right, that was timed to Valentine's Day. Right, you can be timing this to the 4th of July with your plant shutting down and thanking them for their business. Whatever it might be, you want to be proactively putting together that content calendar so that these drip email campaigns are well thought out and play off of each other. Okay, and this goes without saying, so I'm going to breeze through this. We have about 8 minutes left, so just know that you should be, of course, tracking all of your campaign results and continuing to be refining that list. What do I mean by that? So every time you're deploying an email to your email list, there are bounces that take place, so that you're scrubbing those bounces, meaning it's no longer a valid email address, that they might have moved or changed jobs or the company went out of business. And you also want to make sure that you're usually once a year scrubbing that email list, okay? And you can do that through different data append services, where you want to just make sure that you're getting the most up-to-date email addresses possible, so that your list is as strong as it can be. But bottom line is, make sure that you're tracking what these automated campaigns are doing. Because if I come in and say, okay, this is great, you're saying it's not working, and I say, let me take a look at the results, if you're not really tracking that, then it's tough working with. Okay? And lastly, I just want to talk quickly about marketing automation, because that is the rage right now. If people have HubSpot before, they're a publicly traded company right now that's worth a lot of money, that started in our backyard in Cambridge, where they really coined the term inbound marketing, and they've come up with this marketing automation platform that, again, helps you with these drip email marketing campaigns, as an example. Okay, so they have competitors. One, you'll see a screenshot here, it's called Marketo. For those in this webinar, because I see all of your names, and I know many of you, I would say that this is a Cadillac, and we don't need to pay for a Cadillac right now. Okay, it can cost you in the several thousands of dollars a month, and it's extremely sophisticated in what it can do in terms of segmenting messages to different audiences and doing lead scoring. And I don't want to babble here, but there's a lot of powerful things that Marketo can do. But ultimately, I think to right-size this to a small to mid-sized manufacturer, you should be looking at what I had mentioned to you before, right? Whether it's ActiveCampaign, or even, if you can believe it, MailChimp. They now have actually a very small automation module to their emails that might just be fine to crawl before you walk with this, okay? But ActiveCampaign is hopefully another nice nugget for you to take a look into. It's user-friendly. It allows for reporting, right, design, contact management, and ultimately, it allows you to very easily, intuitively develop these email workflows that we're talking to. And the beauty, again, of automation is you can sort of set it and forget it, right? Once you've built all of these workflows up front, okay, and you have the right content, that's the key again, right? Because if you don't have content, a lot of this is out the window. But if you have enough content, then you can intuitively build out these email workflows right through their portal. Okay, so it really simplifies things, so it shouldn't be as intimidating as you think it is. Okay, once you start digging in. And their packages, again, right, they're suitable for someone like us, right? So we're talking about, even for their enterprise package of 500 contacts, we're talking a couple $100 a month. If you're larger and you have over 10,000 email addresses, we're talking about $400 a month. But again, that's really not nearly as expensive as other options that are out there. We've played with this with this platform for quite some time with our clients, and candidly, we love it. Okay. Lastly, you might just really our last slide here. You might say, okay, this is great, but you know what? I don't have time for this for 2018. I just can't even think about automation right now. I have enough on my plate. Then, if nothing else, you should have a very basic CRM package for your sales team. Okay, so that because there's a lot of manufacturers that don't, that I've spoken with, where it's still sort of using it on spreadsheets or weekly reports. You should at least have a customer relationship management package that's very easy for them to be putting in notes and to be managing their own contacts. So one last nugget here in this presentation is if you want to take a look at, there's one called Insightly, which I haven't put on the screen. That's a little bit more high power than Streak, and it's a little bit more expensive. But even for my own database needs for TribalVision, I'm still using Streak, where it's free up until a certain point. And I have a screenshot here of all of the different, stages of a lead in my funnel, right? So it can be lead, connected, first appointment in the light blue if you see that, signed exclusive agreements, right? So you can be setting these stages in your own pipeline however you'd like. And literally it takes 15, 20 minutes to understand and to start building. And again, a lot of manufacturing sales forces that I see, you know, they might be on salesforce.com spending way too much money where they're using 5% of it, and they probably should have started off with something as very streamlined and simplistic as Streak. Okay, so just know that if automation is too much for you right now, too much to handle, you should at least be starting with the watered down CRM package. Okay, we have 2 minutes to spare, which is great. I'm going to just end with a thank you to everyone that's joined, and I love to end with a quote from Peter Drucker. Some of you have heard some of my presentations in the past. I just love to always end with this quote, not because it's self-serving about marketing, to be frank, but I genuinely believe it, this mindset. And again, he's really the godfather of modern day management. He's written probably over 20 books, and if you just Google his name, you'll see that he really is a legend when it comes to business management, not just marketing. So he has a lot of credibility, much more than I do. And he said, because the purpose of business is to create a customer, the business enterprise has two and only two basic functions: marketing and innovation. Marketing and innovation produce results. All the rest are costs. Marketing is the distinguishing, unique function of the business. So again, right, I'm going to just end with what my pet peeve is whenever I end a presentation, which is everything that I've just talked about is really out the window, and it's a complete waste of time and money if ultimately the team that you have around you really doesn't believe in the power of marketing and in the power of really what it can be doing for your company. If they're just sort of just going along to get along, but they really don't believe in marketing as a lead generating engine and so much more, then it's going to be very difficult for you to achieve a positive ROI, or much more difficult than you have a culture of those that have opened their eyes and realize the power of marketing, that it can be just as powerful, if not more powerful, than hiring that extra salesperson. So with that said, I'm going to now open up the chat function here, and if you have any questions whatsoever, would love to answer any questions. For those of you who don't want to stick around for the chat, no worries at all. And like I said, if you do want to have this presentation, you can just email me directly, and I'll be more than happy to share this with you. Hope this was very useful, practical. I'm always very focused on making sure that that it's practical, so you don't feel like you've wasted an hour of your time. And thank you again. So we're now going to open this up for any type of chat. You should see now a quick summary, by the way, if you can. Those that are still in, if you could just be able to just fill out a quick survey in terms of whether or not you found this useful or not, because I want to make sure that every webinar I do, I want to make sure I'm getting better. So it would really be helpful if you don't mind just filling this out. And I know that I have Meredith here is typing one question for me while others are filling out the survey. So I'll wait until Meredith is finished with her chat. And anyone else, if you have questions, feel free to either chat or reach out to me directly offline. Thanks, everybody. I'll just wait for Meredith to finish her question. Yep, so Meredith, I just received your question. Hi, Chris, thank you for hosting this webinar. Can you briefly go over Google Ads again? So can you be a bit more specific, Meredith, in terms of Google Ads? Are you talking SEO, or are you talking, if you just want to be a little bit more specific, I'll be more than happy to talk about that. So you're typing your answer now. Yep, Helga, you just asked the question, wondering if we can get a copy of the presentation, or did I miss that? Yep, so I now know that you would like that, Helga, so you don't even have to email me. I can make sure that I send you that presentation. I'll be sending that to you by the end of the day today. So all set. Okay, got a few more people typing, so I'm just going to be waiting. You're welcome, Helga. Great. So Meredith's follow-up question is Google AdWords, is that the name of it? I'm working on having our team create a dedicated landing page. Is that all I have to do? And I would say it's a good start, that dedicated landing page, but I can certainly give you many more nuggets, Meredith, in terms of what you should be doing, right? Because it's all encompassing from not just the landing page, but I didn't go over it in this presentation, but just know that you should be really honing in on what your ad copy looks like and what it reads like. Okay, that's like number one. And you also have to make sure, even before you write that ad copy, what are you doing to make sure that you really are targeting the right keywords for your ad group campaigns? And even in terms of just structuring those ad group campaigns, you've got to make sure that you have the right structure. You've got to make sure you got to figure out if you want exact, broad, or phrase matches in those ad group campaigns. There's a lot there, so I don't want to overwhelm you, but we probably can take this offline, and I'm more than happy to talk to you, whether it's later today or tomorrow, and hopefully I can give you even more specific streamlined nuggets for you. Yep, my pleasure, Meredith. David is writing, I currently use MailChimp. How is PersistIQ more personal? So you'll see, David, when you go into PersistIQ, you'll see that it really does. I mean, if you were to send me an email using PersistIQ, there's no graphic whatsoever, and it looks like it's literally coming from the desk of David, your desk, David. Okay, so that's how it's more personal, is that just the look of it feels like it really is a personal email coming from you versus a templatized email from MailChimp. So I hope that answers your question. Great. You just said nice. Yep, no worries. Okay, we have another question potentially, so just anyone who wants to keep listening to the Q&A, that's great. Keep filling out those surveys if you don't mind, just to make me even better next time. Okay, another question here. Who would you suggest having the LinkedIn advertising seat? Head of marketing or someone with a sales background? Great question. Again, this is me being very jaded right now, so I want to preface that. But I would rather in the hands of a marketer than a salesperson at first, at least, because, again, just based on my own narrow experience, a salesperson isn't going to be as serious with that advertising seat as someone in marketing, where they have a process that they go through with this seat. Oftentimes salespeople I see, they start off strong and then they don't follow this process of sending out these targeted emails, and it drops off pretty considerably. So I would rather be this a marketing function, and then from there, managing that. You can be interacting with sales to say, listen, who are the next 30 targets that we should be going after? And we can even get to the point where it's still even coming from them. But at first, I would have that in the hands of marketing versus sales. Yep, you're welcome. Okay, another question coming up here. So just wait another moment. Okay, let's see. Nope, the person either might be still yep, they're still typing. It's saying typing now, so I'm just going to wait another minute here. Oh, maybe I'm getting a. Oh, it's still saying typing. Here we go. So the question is, I'd like to keep my follow-up fresh. What are your recommendations? So when you say follow-up, David, are you talking to email campaigns in terms of follow-up, or if you can give me the channel or the tactic that you're talking about? Yeah, correct. Templates, etc. So yeah, it's really important to be fresh, right? Because what I found, at least, is response rates go up dramatically if you're continuously swapping out content and swapping out even graphics. So what I would recommend, actually, David, again, if you don't have a large marketing budget, is you could even go to 99designs.com if you've heard of it, or freelancer.com. You can find very inexpensive graphic designers that are out there, where you can start building out a stream of you know, for TribalVision, for example, we have a whole stream of, you know, 5 or 6 different pieces of content with accompanying graphics that we're rotating in pretty consistently, so don't get old and tired, right? And by using those other outlets that I talked about from a freelance perspective, you can do that without having like the bank of putting that together. But yeah, the key is to stay fresh, because if not, just like anything in life, right? If you're not continuing to try and stay fresh, then you're just really going to just stay in place. And to me, that means, you know, stagnating, which isn't good. Okay. And there's another question. And for any of you, again, that are still on that just want to, you know, contact me directly, feel free, of course, right? You can just email me directly, and we can also take some conversation offline if you'd like as well. So, okay, I think there's one more question, I believe. Okay, great. Yep, I just had someone just say they'll email me directly. That's what was typing. So, okay, everyone, thank you very much for your time. And again, hope this was very useful for you, and hopefully we'll be in touch.